Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about sacrifices in chess. A sacrifice, sometimes it's about like a long-term, unforeseen advantage. Like the advantage isn't that clear. Sometimes when you sacrifice, it's immediate. Like it happens really quickly. It gets you an advantage, like the very next move. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the ladder, where it helps you get an advantage immediately. So let's get started. Okay, so here you might have noticed that this is the position for the Gaussmate. But in the Gaussmate, it is a sacrifice actually. When you take this pawn with your knight, then you're sacrificing your queen on d1 to the black bishop. So if the black bishop takes, that's the sacrifice. And then you proceed with your checkmate. This, and then bam, checkmate. So that is actually one example of a sacrifice. Now in here, this is called the classic bishop sacrifice. This is when you have a bishop on d3 ready to sacrifice on h7. So the bishop takes. Now you might be like, whoa, what does that even do? I mean, there's no pieces around the black king, like no white pieces around the black king to actually pose a real threat, right? Well, you'd be pretty wrong. So if the black king takes, then here there's 4 ways to proceed. The knight goes up, and then if the king goes here, that's a really bad move, but if the king does go there, the knight will just take. Now, what in the world does that do? But the king, realize that it's checked by the bishop on c1, and it most likely doesn't want to go here because it's still in open and the knight could just retreat. It doesn't want to go here. The queen is there. It can't go on this diagonal. So the only moves are h7 and g6. And then, yeah, that's kind of bad for black right now because, like, look at his position. It's really open. He's really open. If it goes down here, then the knight could just go down to g5 and then check again. If it goes here, then you could defend or you can move the knight away, depending on the scenario. But in this case, yes, you do sacrifice a bishop for 2 pawns, but the position for black is really bad right now. He's really open. And also, again, with the bishop sacrifice, another way black might move after knight g5 check. Instead of going here, black can move here. Now that might be pretty bad for black. I would definitely not recommend it. The move before, when the black king goes to h6, that is surprisingly the best move for black. The rest lead up to checkmates. Like this pawn could move up here. It's not checkmate yet, but black can't go. I mean, he could go here, but it will end up like the same position like last time. So if black goes here, then this pawn can move up, and then checkmate. So that is actually pretty surprising, the bishop sacrifice. Also, when the bishop takes, the king goes here, the knight goes here. Instead of moving to like the 6th rank, you might be like, oh, I would want to move down to the 8th rank, because that's safer. I mean, I don't want to expose my king on the 6th rank, so that might be pretty smart. But let's say you move down to h8, then the queen could go here, check, and you can't prevent checkmate as black. There's no way to block this queen, and so this is your only move, and then checkmate. So that kind of sucks for black. And one last time with the bishop sacrifice, the king takes, the knight moves up. Now instead of moving down to h8, what if he moves down to g8? Now that might be smarter, but you could still checkmate from here. Yes, this is not a check, but if black doesn't do anything about this scenario, like if he moves a5, then the white queen could just go down to h7 and checkmate. So black, he would probably want to move his rook away, so then when the queen goes down to h7, then black king could just move to f8. So let's say rook e8. Now, you left your pawn hanging as black, but that was your only choice. I mean, it's either pawn hanging or checkmate immediately. But if white takes, then as black you only have one move. You can't go here to f8 because the queen will be guarding that square, and you can't go to h7 because the knight will be guarding that square. So h8. And then after here, you could move down, move here, and then this, and then check, you move, and then this might take some time, but eventually, you will get a checkmate. Because this position is really bad for black, and for white, it's kind of good. So the sacrifice, the classic bishop sacrifice, is it's pretty powerful, and as black, just make sure you avoid it. Now this one is called a clearance sacrifice. You clear a piece that's in your way. You move it out of the way, but with a gain of tempo. So here, for white, it seems really, really bad. I mean, the bishop on f4, the black bishop on f4, is attacking the queen. And if the queen moves, then black will take the knight on f5. And that is pretty bad for white. So it's really, 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 really horrible condition for white, right? Is it time for white to resign? The answer is no. If white realizes that queen to g7 would be checkmate if that white rook wasn't there. So how do you get rid of the white rook with a gain of tempo or a gain of time? I mean, you can't move it here because then the bishop on f4 would just take on g3, your queen. So how do you do this? You check the king, and now the king, I mean, you can't block the check. You can't move to g8 because the queen, the white queen, is guarding that. So the king has to take. And then even if white is in a horrible condition, he checkmates. Queen to g7. Now this is checkmate. I can't move any pieces because it's checkmate. Now this one, this is called a decoy. Notice how the queen, if it moved to b5, then aside from the bishop on f1, the knight could go down to c7 and fork the king, the queen, and the rook. But the queen is on c6 where it guards that fork. So how do you get out? How do you get the queen to b5? Well, obviously you don't sit there and wait for black to make that horrible move. You gotta force black to do it. So the correct answer is bishop to b5. Now this is a pin, and the black queen, it can't go anywhere except take the bishop and go down to d7. And going down to d7, it still loses. So black might be like, whoa, free bishop, right? The answer is not exactly free, because we already labeled that b5 square as suicidal. Now the black queen is on that b5 square. And then this is a fork. The king moves up here, then the knight could just take the queen, and black has a few rights to resign. Now this is the last one. This is when the defender it has too much work, it has too much baggage to carry. So notice how the black queen on d7 is guarding the d6 square and the g7 square, and also the rook on d8. So notice how queen takes g7 would have been checkmate if not for the black queen. So that's the key pawn. So how do you get rid of this black queen? You gotta do it forcefully. You can't sit there and wait for the black queen to just like move away as before. That wouldn't work. So the rook taking on d6 is the right move. If the queen takes, do not take back with your queen, but take the g7 pawn with your queen, and that will be checkmate. If black is smart enough, then he'll probably just move down here and not take, because he sees that it will be a checkmate on g7. Now as white, don't do this, don't take that pawn yet, because the black queen is still guarding it. But the right move is taking the rook on d8, and now if black moves here, then you want a rook. If black takes the rook with his queen, then it's going to be checkmate. His queen takes g7. So that will be about it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, leave a like, subscribe, and click that notifications bell so you never miss another video.